Oh, hi, everybody. It's Ezra Levant, and I am here in leafy Calgary. I know you don't believe me because it looks like I'm in some lush tropical getaway, but I'm actually in Calgary, Canada. What's that, 51 degrees north latitude? So I'm here in one of the few moments of the year that could be possibly called summer. I lost my selfie stick, so I'm holding my phone in my hand. That's why it's so wobbly. Anyhow, I have an update for you. As you know, the other day I did a live stream about some threats that my receiving from, it appeared, the Chinese consulate in Calgary. Just to give you a background, I published a book a few weeks ago called China Virus: How Justin Trudeau's Pro-Communist Ideology is Putting Canadians in Danger. And the book is obviously pegged to the pandemic, the coronavirus that came from Wuhan, China. But the book really focuses on how that pandemic has exposed the greater virus, which, of course, is the Communist Party of China itself, and how it has subverted our own democracy here in Canada, and how Justin Trudeau is so in love with the Chinese Communist Party. It's so weird. And I really document that, not just Trudeau, but his family, his father, his brother Sasha, and his cabinet ministers, his ambassadors, his senior staff. So the book has been very well received, lots of five-star reviews on Amazon. I mention Amazon because, of course, the book was banned by Amazon for 2 months before they finally relented. It immediately shot up the bestsellers list, and then it was banned by Amazon again, and then unbanned again. Don't get me started about that. So, anyways, so because it's been the pandemic, we sold most of our books online, both paperbacks and ebooks. But now that the pandemic lockdown is being lifted in different jurisdictions, we had our first actual book launch event last night in Sherwood Park, which is a little town that immediately abuts Edmonton, Alberta. So a couple of degrees latitude further north, even. But it was very nice weather. So it was a sold out event, 144 tickets. That's the most the restaurant we were dealing with could accept under the social distancing rules. So I think the restaurant could normally hold 300 people or something, but they were only allowed to have 144, and there were all these special rules. Anyhow, it was sold out very quickly. It was so great to see people there. But a couple of days ago, the restaurant, which by the way could probably be called a Chinese restaurant, it's called Buffet Royale. A lot of their food is Chinese food, and I was told by the owner yesterday that he has 40 employees who are Chinese Canadian. Now, Chinese Canadian, that doesn't mean that they're loyal to communist China. In fact, sort of the opposite. They made a pledge of loyalty to Canada when they took their citizenship oath. So this was and by the way, the staff there were very friendly. There were even some Rebel fans. One young lady in particular wanted me to sign several books of hers. So the question was, would there be protests? Would the event proceed? And I was skeptical that Antifa would get involved as they had in the past, because Sherwood Park isn't really their hangout. They really weren't organized in time. But just in case, we had a paid security guard, as we often do. The left never has to have a security guard because the left are the violent ones. No right-wingers try and shut down or storm a left-wing event or deplatform a left-wing event. We also, believe it or not, at our book launch, had our lawyer right there. In this case, a young lawyer named Taylor Thiessen, a smart kid from just graduated U of A Law School, now interning at our law firm in Edmonton. So, I mean, tell me another author who has to have, I'm laughing, who has to have a security guard and a lawyer at their book launch. Anyhow, so went up there early. Sheila Gunn Reid was up there. Keean Bexte, I came up from Calgary with them. We had a surprise guest, Yankee, who is in our works with us in Montreal, came out. So it was a bit of a fun reunion. And wouldn't you know it, there actually was a protest. It was a protest that, from the best we could divine, was organized by the Chinese consulate. In fact, we particularly asked that question of, I think there was about 10 protesters, maybe there were 12. They all came together, they all had the same signs, and they all had the same message track, and none of them would answer. Some of them, when we said, "Are you a member of the Communist Party of China? Do you support the Communist Party of China?" They were pretty tight-lipped about it, but none of them would say they're against the Communist Party of China. Look, it was obvious who they were. It was the same orchestrated campaign that the restaurant itself had been facing for days. I went outside when I heard that there were protesters, and I brought a book with me, and I said, have you read the book? None of them had read the book. So they're protesting against a book that none of them had read. So I walked out, and I'm famously friendly. Like, I'm talking world famous friendly. So I went out and said, look, would you like the book? I can even autograph it for you. M. Rockabilly, your book arrived in the mail yesterday. I'm glad it did. Hey, I offered these protesters a free book because we had boxes of them. They all refused it. I said, look, I'll sign it for you, or not. I'll give you the book. They wouldn't even take the book for free. I said, how can you protest? Damien the Damned says, I'm sorry you were attacked by the CCP. Can you please expose extraordinary rendition by this CCP in Vancouver? I wasn't attacked by the Communist Party of China. It was pretty weak as an attack. But they did come in an organized way to smear and defame us. And one guy lost his cool and started swearing at me and calling names. I went back in after a few minutes. This one guy put his finger so close to my face. I went like that to sort of pretend I was going to bite it, and he was surprised. Anyway, I was a little silly. These guys, they're not used to protesting in Canada. They're not used to people having free speech. It was very weird. I was bored with it. After about 5 minutes, I went back inside to talk to our paying guests. But Sheila Gunn Reid and Keean Bexley stayed outside and engaged. I don't even know if that's, I think that word's too big. Tried to engage with these communists outside, asked them about the Uyghurs, asked them about things like that. They did not want to talk. They also played a trick, a commie trick, I'll call it. That was one line. One guy started swearing at me and wagging his. I said, calm down, commie. Commie, calm down. Anyways, I went back inside sort of quick because I wasn't there to waste my time on these guys. But they parked in a way that deliberately blockaded the restaurant. What a Chi-Com move, eh? What a Chinese communist move. They literally parked their cars in a way to block the restaurant. So the restaurant owner himself had to call the cops to have the cars moved. But I have to say, if anything, it galvanized everyone in the room. The restaurant owner was stronger than ever because he could see the unfairness of it, and he could see the proof that these were not people from Sherwood Park. These were not his customers, and these were not people who cared about the well-being of Chinese Canadians who worked in the restaurant. These were just Communist Party puppets here in Canada. It was only 10 of them. They were pretty lame. They couldn't handle themselves. I think they were nervous even by the fact that we went out to talk to them. I think the protest was an utter failure on their part, except for they're probably going to send videotape of it back to their handlers in Beijing, who will be absolutely delighted by it. So it's that strange world in a totalitarian regime where if you do what the boss wants, even if it's a failure, the boss is thrilled. I mean, you really have to watch that mini-series on HBO called Chernobyl to get a real feeling for how totalitarian regimes operate. Anyways, I just wanted to let you know how the story ended, because before I went up there, I didn't think there would be a big problem, but we had a security guard and a lawyer there on standby just in case. In the end, there was a little problem. 10 communist Chinese plants there with their prefab signs and their talking points. They melted pretty quickly under pressure. They made a bit of a fuss to send back to their bosses in Beijing for approval. But if anything, it proves to me the importance and the urgency of this book. And here's why, and I'll close on this. Sherwood Park is, let's call it a bedroom community of Edmonton. It's not in Edmonton proper, but it's just, across the highway from Edmonton. I'm not going to call it a sleepy place because it's not sleepy, but it's small. It's a town. And if 10 communist Chinese hecklers can go to war against a restaurant in Sherwood Park, imagine what it's like in Edmonton proper. Imagine what it's like in Vancouver or Toronto. And that's the thing. When you have politicians who are susceptible to these mobs, and instead of 10 protesters, it's 100 or 1,000 or 10,000, you can see how our own Canadian government is pressured both by Beijing directly and by Beijing's puppets indirectly. In the book China Virus, I describe how in the last election campaign, Harjit Sajjan, the defense minister, attended a 70th anniversary party for the Communist Party of China in Vancouver. So let me just be clear, this was not a 70th birthday party for China, the country. I can understand that. But this was a 70th birthday party specifically for the party, the dictatorship, the communists. Why would Harjit Sajjan, who I have my disagreements with him politically, but he's a loyal Canadian. He actually served as a soldier. I think he's an honorable enough guy. I mean, he had some stolen valor issues, but he knows what it means to risk things for the country. He's a patriot, even though I mean he's a liberal and he's gotten worse since he's been in cabinet. The guy's a patriot, and he served, which is more than I can say for myself. I didn't serve in our armed forces. So what would make a loyal Canadian who served in our armed forces with distinction, like Harjit Sajjan, literally attend the 70th anniversary party for the Communist Party of China? And by the way, he also sent over 150 athletes from the Canadian Forces to a military games in Wuhan, China. Why is he doing that? Because of this kind of pressure times 100. The little pressure we had last night outside the restaurant, multiply that times 100, and you see the problem that Canada faces. That is the China virus. I'm not even talking about the coronavirus, and I'm certainly not talking about the Chinese people. I'm talking about the enemy of the Chinese people, called the Communist Party of China. Anyways, it was a great night. Thank you to everyone who was there. I know there were a lot of people who wanted to get tickets and couldn't. Unfortunately, the restaurant had that hard maximum of 144 people. They just could not breach it because of social distancing. The police came because of the protesters. They looked inside to make sure we were social distancing, which is tough to do in a restaurant, but everything went great inside. The protest outside was pretty lame. So thanks to all of you who were there. Thanks to those of you who wanted to come but couldn't make it. We will have book events in other places around the country as they open up. And you know what? I think we're probably going to have more protests. Oh, let me tell you one more thing, and I don't have it in my hand here. But they served me with a legal threat. I told you I had my lawyer there. Taylor Thiessen of Reynolds Mirth, he's a Articling student. So he was busy the whole night. It was great to see. I mean, it's so funny to have a lawyer in a suit with a briefcase at a dinner. It was funny. But he did a great job, and he's a really smart kid. And so they served on him a legal threat letter for me, saying if I didn't change my book, they were going to take me to the Human Rights Commission. I swear to God. They served him a letter addressed to me that if I did not change certain aspects of my book, which they had not read, they would take me to the Human Rights Commission. I'm sorry I don't have the letter in my hand because I almost forgot to tell you about that. I will read the letter. I'll do a show about that letter. But can you believe that? I mean, folks, we're not in Beijing. You can't threaten authors to change their book. By the way, without even reading the book, that's not how we roll in Canada, I don't think. All right, well, that's my 15-minute update from this tropical paradise you see behind me, known as Calgary, Alberta. I'm going to sign off. I'd encourage you to watch my show tonight. It's the best of our coverage recently, so tune in tonight. Until next time, on behalf of all of us at Rebel News here in tropical paradise of Calgary and around the world, goodbye, and keep fighting for freedom.